So one thing that fascinates me about Power Slap is the ability to take a shot. Um, Basically, everybody in Power Slap has power and can strike. I mean, that's kind of generous, but for the most part, that's true. And so, like, your success in a lot of ways really will come down to if you can take a shot, because there's a coin flip involved, and like every time's 50-50. So just because you lost two coin tosses in a row, like, you still have the same odds. So like there's a world where if you fight four times in Power Slap, you lose the coin toss every time. And so like your ability to be successful rides a lot on your ability to be able to take at least one shot in a match. And like basically the question of whether there's a right way to do it is something that I think's been floated around since the beginning of Power Slap, like even all throughout like the growth of it. And after watching as many matches as I've watched, it's something where like in my last video about how to recover, it's mostly just me watching and seeing a ton and seeing like common similarities between things that don't work and things that do work, and just kind of drawing some educated conclusions from there. Nothing to do with like science. Like, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a slap fighter, but so from what I've seen, there's a couple ways where like you can take a slap. Some guys like to be super tense and just like tense up as much as possible when they take the strike. And that seems to be pretty good and pretty successful to me, from what I've seen. Doesn't always work. Like, there's always like exceptions, but for the most part, that seems to work pretty well. And then the second way is like to be loose, and not really to be loose. Like, to be like too loose is how I would say not to do it, but I'll get to that after. So the other way that people like to do it is to roll with it. And so like rolling with punches has been a thing for forever. That's like a boxing term, I believe. And I like the idea of it is to turn right when the blow's coming so that it takes like some of the speed away and even some of the angle so it doesn't hit his flush. That is a little risky in Power Slap because you run the risk of flinching. And with like the super slow-mo, like you can get away with it in real time, but when they start going to the monitors, man, like it's a tough sport to like get calls in your favor, like if it's close. So a lot of times, like you might like they might not call it right away, but then they'll like after the fact they'll call it with the super slow-mo. But it is very, from what I've seen, it is actually very like, it's a very good way to go about it if you can do it right and not get penalized. So now, like, what's the wrong way to do it in my opinion? So the wrong way to do it in my opinion is just to be too loose to the point where like when you get slapped, your head just starts bobbling all over the place. Like, a common theme I've seen for like some of the most brutal knockouts is people being super loose, and like basically picture a bobblehead. Like, that's like what you end up looking like it goes left, then it goes right, then it goes up, then it goes down. Like, whenever that happens, that basically, from what I've seen, always ends in like at least a knockdown, or sometimes some of the most brutal knockouts you'll see in Power Slap. And so what I was going to do was I'll play a couple examples of both. Like, first I'm going to play an example of a couple people eating slaps when they're like really tense, and like you'll see that like when the strike comes, they're so tense that they try to keep their like chin from moving, like keep it on the center line, like straight, exactly how it is, and just let the blow like go through them. And so I'll show you a couple examples of that, and then right after, it'll switch to an example of an example or two of rolling with it. And then like I was able to duplicate the video and then slow-mo it so that it'll play like in real time, and then it'll play slow-mo after, so you'll see it twice. And then I'll show some examples of like what I was talking about where it's like bobblehead. I might not show like actual videos of that just in case people don't really love seeing it. So I might just show like still pictures. I'll probably do that. But yeah, so let's play it.
Eats it up. He take it. We know he can give it. No problem. We go down low. Cole Young just
We go down low. There's your measure.
Get hit again. He's going on one here.
right on one.
Good slap.
All right, so he had to eat two.
So hopefully you were able to see what I mean in that, like in the first case, staying super tense, like as tense as you possibly can, and just letting it like absorb without even moving, or at least trying to. That seems to be an effective way. And then also the example about rolling with it, you'll see like right before the slap, there's like a minor turn to the head, but it's timed so well that like even with slow-mo, it's tough to call it. And I must say, Cole Young is like one of the best I've seen at doing that. Like, it's so impressive how he does that. You'll see that like when he rolls, there's no like bobblehead like back, you know, like it's a lot of force going, but like once it turns and goes, it stops. Like there's no like ricochet of like the head. And that's a lot of like neck strength comes into play a lot in power slap. You'll always see them talking about like neck strength and neck force. And that's true in both cases here. Like to keep your head straight, you need the neck right when there's impact, but when you roll with it, you need the neck at the end so that it doesn't ricochet back like the bobblehead example we were talking about. Like it goes through and then you use all your force to stop it. And so hopefully that made sense, but it's a very effective way if you can get away with it. And Cole Young, like, he's just one of the best at it. There are a few people that do it, but there's also a lot of people that try to do it and get fouled. Like I've seen, I don't even want to say whoever's name it is. I can't remember, but I could look it up. But there was one match where I watched some dude get DQ'd for flinching 3 times in a row. Like, it's like, bro, at some point you got to like go back to the drawing board, you know, because you flinching 2 for flinching in power slap, it's honestly like horrendous. It's a horrible call to get called on you. So yeah. And then now you'll see a picture with a few pictures on it, like a collage. And like, I don't know if you're trying to notice, but like every single one in here I picked for a reason. Like you'll see that their head is like on an angle too. Like not only is it turning, but it's going like up and down too at like a weird angle. Like that, from what I've seen, is never good. Like, and how does that happen? I mean, if you're really tensed up trying to keep it straight, like sometimes there's big enough hitters to where like it won't even matter. But like sometimes maybe that would just come from, you know, being too loose. It could come from trying to roll with it and not being able to stop yourself at the end. Or like, who knows, like, but basically from what I've seen, like you just want to avoid this position where it's like your head's moving like 2 different ways. Because then once it like snaps whichever way it goes, it's like almost instantly seems like these dudes, whoever gets hit like that goes out, like not just goes out, but like goes out cold. And so I would say that just any way to avoid that. But I think that there's two good ways to go about it.